Hello.
Hello, hello
We're
there.
live.
We are live.
We are live. My name is Steve Jaguar.
And I'm Mike Foster.
Welcome once again to March Madness, which begins today. That's not correct, is it? But it does begin today. I'm very excited about it. But this show is called Yeah, and of course, in case we say something stupid.
The thoughts expressed on the show belong to the presenters only and not any employer or sponsor.
It's definitely going to happen. So, probably already has.
Probably already has. Yeah. I just we don't have any viewers yet. I don't expect from my side of the world we will, because I screwed up and didn't advertise that the 4-hour difference between the two of us means this show is at 5, not 6.
Yes, true. Can we just get rid of daylight savings time altogether?
I don't know. Can
we please?
So many things should go.
I think the world just needs to band together and get rid of this one thing. Just daylight savings time, gone.
That would be. I will sign that petition. I will go to that. I might go to that protest if it's not too inconvenient.
Cool. All right, awesome. We have a packed show for everybody today. Hopefully you guys got a chance to check out the meetup last week. We had a talk with Muriel about all the cloud native tools, really in-depth talk, really awesome. And also, Steve, you got to pick Michael Hausenblas's brain a little bit about supply chain security. So
it was good.
Yeah, it was. If you have a chance, go over to WTF Security and check out those videos. If you're following along, follow our videos, check us out on YouTube. There's a bunch of links in that about section. You can post comments, tell us everything dumb that we said. So we'll just have to keep hitting the disclaimer all the time. And yeah, what are we talking about today, Steve? You were actually a driver of this lineup mostly.
I did kind of drive the lineup. We're going to start off talking about the very beginning is very Kubernetes focused and security. There's some upgrades to some key tooling, GitOps focused, wink, wink. Probably guess what that is. Then we're going to go into some kind of wacky vulnerabilities that were found over the past few weeks. We had a little bit more time to do things because we don't do the show on the same week as we do meetups. And then we're going to go into a slew of WTFs, which is going to smooth us nicely into some just completely insane spending that went on.
It's tax season, guys.
It's tax season. It is so obviously the end of a financial year for some people and some banks and some investors. So some money, I'm going to say it again, Michael, we got to create a startup that just does anything. Because it feels like Kubernetes and cloud native security is pretty ripe with get rich quick schemes. Next week's show, I have a really good one I found today, but I was too late to get on the show. So tune in next week for some proper, more WTF crazy. And then we're gonna have a very brief tool time discussion. No demo this week. Sorry.
All good. Let's kick it off with an upgrade. So
Steve, the upgrade. I mean, bash. Well, you can. I consider you to be like the CNCF guru. Sure. Where's the
so boom. Flux gets the upgrade from sandbox to incubation. For anybody that doesn't know, CNCF has this general process of you donate your application, your open source application and its code to the CNCF sandbox, and then after you hit a bunch of specific milestones, you get pushed to incubation, and then obviously there's a bunch of other milestones, you get pushed to graduation. So it's actually really a cool process. I really like the way the CNCF handles these projects. You have to have a certain amount of board members, TOC chairs. You have to have security auditing, a process for reporting vulnerabilities and things like that. So yeah, there it is, sandbox stage, incubating stage, and graduation stage. Congrats to Flux. I'm sure Flux won't be the only one because KubeCon EU is coming up. And yeah, normally all these announcements tend to sort of pile into KubeCon, and you'll probably see a couple other projects that either get donated as well and move to incubation. I also find it really interesting at how many are donated to the sandbox, but they can't form enough of a community around the project to actually get to incubation. So good for Flux. They're doing some things right and people are involved, and quick shout out. On the other CNCF note, I know we didn't put it in there, but the Cube Native Security Con. I think that's the title. I'm probably butchering it, but they just released their lineup as well. It's really, really fun lineup. Honestly, it's a lot of the stuff and the people that we talk about got in, and they have some really cool topics. So worth checking out. And I hope to see you guys there because I'll be watching that whole day. So
yeah, that'll be a good one. This, I think, from a perspective, I think it's a no-brainer that Flux was going to get this because people who know it and use it, you look at what's required for incubating and you go, seriously, they weren't already there? Like that's, I feel like they're way beyond it. But if you're an open source, if you have an open source project, be that like, it's worth going here and looking at what it takes to be part of the incubating stage before you even consider sandboxing it, right? So I think, because I do wonder, I'd love to see a stat. Maybe we can get a CNCF person on here that kind of manages if you know anybody who manages this graduation process, and talk to them about how many projects go into sandbox that never leave. Yeah.
I mean, the TOC chairs are probably like the head of the CNCF TOC chairs are definitely the people you want to contact. But yeah, no,
there's get Liz on here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's 9 TOC chairs, right? I think. Did they expand it?
I don't know. Yeah, that's the one I know. So that would be the easiest.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when Docker donated theirs, which they called it. What was it? Distribution. Technically, it's not Docker, right? Because they fought that battle after watching Elastic. But yeah, they pushed for it to be right into incubation stage right away because obviously the code base is mature. It's just. It also depends on the community, right? Because like you donate Docker, you still need people who want to contribute to that open source project. So also, if you want to get in, worth checking out everything in incubation, seeing how close those projects are. They might be like 1 or 2 TOC chairs and contributors away from moving up. So
yeah, that's pretty cool. Like until we did this article, I had never actually read that to see what all these different stages require. It's like getting to graduation. It's a big deal. It's actually pretty well thought out. Not surprising, but of course, very cool. All right, let's move on. And this is another article I found. 10 Kubernetes security context settings you should understand. I don't know if all 10 are absolutely essential, but definitely some of these, right? So it starts off with kind of the no-brainers. There's a nice little card. Oh, this is Sneak did this. Eric Smalling and Matt Jarvis. These are names that, if you're in this sort of security world, are familiar. They're kind of like the you of SNCC, as you are to StackRox.
StackRox, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do a good job, and it's actually very succinct and well shown.
Yeah. So what do you think about the top 10? Because I was pretty down with all this, and then I got into ProcMount and FS Group, and I was like, oh, okay. So I took a little bit more interest as we got to the bottom of the pile. Even though there was warning, it was more like warnings. I don't know how hardcore familiar you would want to be. Maybe they just wanted to have 10 and like, we're having 10, damn it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was the 10 also because like you could see run as user / run as group, right? I mean,
yeah,
it kind of deserves 2 separate breakdowns because, you can say run as non-privileged, but then if all of your containers are running as the same group, well, then you're still somewhat exploitable too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I think it's just one of those 10 things. I agree with all of these up here as well. I thought the SecOp profile was one of the most interesting ones, just because I think SecOp is very misunderstood, and it requires a lot of constant communication because people have to really understand their applications and the permissions that it needs.
Yeah.
Because if you set a SecOp profile and you over allow the profile, then you could obviously be giving escalated privileges to the process. If you undershoot in terms of privileges, then you're just interfering with the application and its functionality. So it's because SecOp sort of exists outside of Kubernetes, you can get everything right in your manifest and then apply a poor SecOp profile, and that's a whole other thing you have to debug too, right? So I find it the plugins to Kubernetes, if you don't understand how they work, you can create more issues for yourself. But in terms of top 10, I think these are all very solid and worthwhile, and honestly, like very succinctly written. So
yeah, it's a very short article, and it does a very good job of summarizing what they are. My sub question, I'm surprising you with, without giving anything away, is of these, how relevant were these to know this? Say you were going to do the CKS. Does it go as deep as what they're going here, or is it more like
you have to understand what they are and if they're turned on or off? I'll say that.
Okay, that's a nice hint. All right, cool. At the end of this, though, we must remember to plug the thing we're doing next week, almost like what I did.
I mean, you brought it up, so you can just talk about it. Yeah. The next week, DevSecOps London, we're going to be talking CK, CKS, CKAD. Yeah, I actually haven't said this, but I went back and took the CKAD, passed it. So yeah, Steve and I will be DevSecOps London next week. What's the exact date, Steve?
24th, Wednesday the 24th. It'll be at 5 p.m. GMT. But actually, that means it'll be 1 for you because of the weird time change. And if you're on the West Coast, it'll be that -3, whatever that is, some number, 10.
Yeah, so come with questions if you're not sick of us talking about all those certs.
Seriously. Yeah, anyone from anywhere on the planet can show up. Just if you were looking in Meetup for it, set your city to London and then look up the DevSecOps London Gathering. You'll find it. And it's just called CK ? Certifications. Kind of an ask me anything scenario, but Foster will do most of the talking.
Sounds good. See you guys there. But yeah, any questions on that? I posted the link in the chat, and it will obviously exist on our Excel sheet that you can follow for all our references down below.
Alrighty. So the next one on the list was I called Exchange Servers Suck. And there were so many links about this. I have to work out like where's the best ones. Let me just bring this one up to start because this was pretty bad. But this is whenever you see multiple zero-day exploits in Exchange servers that allow remote code execution, that's a fair summary, right? But it's not like just they were found. It's that as time progressed, then Microsoft removed code from GitHub and looked bad. If you look at proxy login as just one of them, it's a remote code execution. So there's lots of information, lots of links we can get. And where is it? More details emerge. So this is where they started to, now that when you find a 0-day, you know how to characterize it, then you can manipulate your threat intelligence to look for activity. And then you can start to see that it's a proper 0-day. Like before you found it, other people found it.
Yeah.
So it was out there, it was happening, and so it's bad. It's a bad one, and it's kind of funny, you know.
Yeah, email servers publicly accessible, right?
Yeah,
those are going to be your quick targets, and then as soon as somebody figures it out, you get into basically the spray and pray mentality where they're just going to be sniffing the internet for it. So, yeah,
just assume it's been automated. And it's weaponized. And the group called Hafnium, I don't know who comes up with these wonderful names, but it must stand for something. I haven't gone through and found that out yet. But who is Hafnium? There we go. I'm not going to get into this. Good links. We'll put these links into the usual place we put links, which is sometimes nowhere. But hopefully I can post some of these into the chat and you can get a bit of research on it. If you're the kind of geek that I am and you want to see what it means and how you can prevent it. If you're running an Exchange server, probably pretty critical reading at the moment.
Yeah. And actually one of the other links that I posted in there was people had actually put up how to exploit it on GitHub and GitHub removed it.
Oh yeah.
Right.
That was the one. Yeah. That's that one.
Yeah. And so I just found it as an interesting conversation as to how these things are reported and analyzed. Right. So if you're, let's say, managing an open source project, as soon as these things come through the pipeline, you are notifying everybody that there's a vulnerability at the same time, working on the fix. Partially because if you know you're vulnerable, you take these services offline, right? Now, a little different when people find the vulnerability before you do, right? Because then what does that reporting process look like, right? If we haven't patched the fix, I'd rather somebody not put out how to exploit this publicly available on the internet, right? Because then everybody can just go pull it and go follow the spray and pray method. So I don't know. I don't envy anybody that had to go through and remove that code, but it's just a tough process. And especially with cloud providers, like you do see some cloud providers are more open with some of the, not necessarily vulnerabilities, but bugs that they have, right? You'll see some services get downtime, and maybe they don't necessarily report it until you call in, you say, hey, I'm having an issue with the service on your cloud provider. It's like, oh yeah, it's been down for the last 2 hours. It's up on the website now because enough people called in, right? So there's this weird, how we react to these issues. I don't necessarily fault Microsoft for pulling it. When you have a bunch of, let's say, corporate companies that rely on your product, you don't necessarily want that vulnerability to be public on your website, right? But it's not a good look. I'll say that.
It's an exploitability proof of concept. So the security teams that are wondering if they have this and it's exploitable tools, that's a tool. That's not an exploit. It's a usable something you can do to see, oh yeah, we do have this. I can see how I can exploit it. Like exploits are both positive and negative. They're good for the baddies, but they're really, really useful if you need to check for it. So it's a little bit
because it's not being weaponized,
that they take it down. Of course it'll be weaponized, but it's already weaponized. I would just assume the bad guys have it, the good guys don't. If somebody puts an easy one out there, then let the good guys be able to find it faster. I think they should have just let it be there.
Maybe they took it and then internally they're using it of like, here, go check. But we don't want this public. I don't know.
It feels political.
Because then what's the point of taking it down then? What's the benefit to Microsoft?
I don't know.
That's why partially I think there had to be something in this POC that showed more than what should have been happening or something like that. Like there had to be something that made somebody look bad.
Well, there's a link here to another one that's still there.
Oh, I got to go check this out.
All right. So we can report back next week perhaps on what it looks like. But yeah, so there it is. All sorts of crazy stuff happened to Microsoft, but they weren't alone.
No.
Do we have the next one? Is it also theirs? We didn't do F5. I should have done F5 right after this. Can I skip ahead because it's related?
Yeah, you want to put F5 there? Go ahead.
I'm going to put F5. Let's go back to F5. F5. So if you don't know, people know what if you're watching this show, you know who F5 is. Extraordinary Digital Experiences, security company, but had really bad vulnerabilities. Let me just see if I could find, what is this? I hate when stuff pops up. Come on. Where is the vulnerabilities for F5? F5's turn. I like how now it's F5's turn to reveal critical security bugs. This isn't, you can see they even mention exchange hacks here. And this is on the 11th of March. They start talking about a CVSS score of 9.9 is actually pretty hard to achieve.
Wow.
Yeah. That's, if you go play with the little CVSS calculator, you can manipulate and see how the numbers are formed, but
it allows authenticated users with network access to the configuration utility through the big IP management port or self IP addresses to execute arbitrary system commands, create or delete files or disable services. I mean, yeah, it's a 9.9. And honestly, because it's your route into a lot of services, it's going to have the largest impact, right? You take down a load balancer, your entire service is gone.
It's bonkers, but it's what's worse about it being how bad that horror story sounds is that security companies are held to a much higher standard.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like, and then having worked for security companies for some time, I mean, sometimes I've been a part of pen tests. Actually, we'll talk about that at the very end as well, where we have penetration tests against our own security tool. Because you spend so much time developing it. You're just like anybody else. If you make a security tool, you have the same developers that the non-security companies have. Mm-hmm. And you have the same struggles where they're like, security? Oh God, do I have to use security tools? We're making a security tool. Please have a secure pipeline. It's the exact same struggle exists. So don't think that because we're part of a security company or the security arm of a company that somehow we're way better, or we don't have the same developers who want to bypass or shadow IT or security measures. So you just got to be better, because it's so much worse when something like that goes public on you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And it wasn't just the 1, too, right? There was the 9.9.
Yeah, then the 9.8 afterwards.
And then a 9.0, and then 2 9.0s.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there was also an 8 and a 6.6.
Oh yeah, 8.8, 8.0, 6.6.
And a 6.6.
Oh
so
my
it's
gosh! Yeah, if you're using Big IP, also I'm trying to think who are the big cloud providers that use Big IP. I know Google is a F5 and Nginx shop.
It's a lot. Let me see if they mention here.
That's what I'm curious about, because
Yeah.
you think about these cloud providers, like they're not doing everything in house. So this is part of that supply chain of like, you're using Anthos or something like that. You probably are using, Big IP as your load balancer across your hybrid clusters. You can't secure everything, and it just becomes more piecemeal.
Well, if you want to know the biggest logos on the front of their website that are claiming, I don't know if these are specific to this product or potential vulnerabilities, but the biggest logos on their sites are Significant, AWS, Azure, HashiCorp, Cisco, Equinix, and Red Hat.
Damn. No Google?
No Google there.
Because I know they're used for Anthos. That's pretty much all of my call. But yeah, I'm not shocked. It's pretty, like, you basically need global load balancers in this day and age, right, to move your workload. So it's, as much as you want to make everything highly available, you're still somewhat limited, right?
Indeed.
Cool.
So that's a biggie. That's a pretty exciting few weeks of spectacular vulnerabilities. And then there was this one. And did you drop this one in there? This is the 15-year-old Linux bug.
Yes.
Or did I do that? All right. So you can have that. But
I did.
I'm definitely going to comment on it. Oh,
just making me big. There we go.
Yeah. I got it.
All right. Yeah. Experts found 3 new 15-year-old bugs in Linux kernel module. I put this up, and Steve, you actually mentioned that it's a vulnerability is triggered by setting an iSCSI string attribute to a value larger than 1 page and then trying to read it. But yeah,
classic.
More specifically, an unprivileged user can send netlink messages to the iSCSI subsystem, which sets attributes related to the connection. Very small, very probably like a very low impact. But I think it's more of the comment of, hey, these have been around for 15 years and nobody noticed them. I kind of got caught by the clickbait of the headline, because 15 years old, it's crazy. We just had one that was 10 years old last week, 2 weeks ago, with the was it the shell script breakout, overloading memory right through shell.
That was a little better. I think these ones are pretty unlikely. Yeah. Just because of the technology that they're associated with, but they're a very good picture of the way code was written 15 years ago, because it's it actually is a little bit heartbleedish, because it's just a case of making assumptions about incoming data sizes and then not checking, but using it. Or as Heartbleed was, assuming that the number that was being sent to you matched the size of data you had. That's what Heartbleed worked. But that's like coming from the era of people who wrote code that went into things like this. That's the kind of stupid stuff we did. You made it sanitizing inputs, both in terms of just correctness, size, and for security, as we know to do now. People just didn't do it. We just our version of velocity was to not check things. And there's still things creep around.
But yeah, I'm actually kind of curious to how they found this.
Yeah, does it say? I didn't see if it said how it was found. I mean, that is weird, right? It's almost weirder that it got found at all.
Yeah, so they were notified Linux security team February 17th.
Yeah.
And then public disclosure was 3 weeks later, 3.5 weeks later.
Not quite 0 Day Friday. Nice. Yeah. That's still interesting. I think it's fascinating. And I like this guy's It's worth it just to see this guy's profile photo. He pops up enough that I don't think I would get away with the Grim Reaper hoodie look, but he can.
All right.
Awesome. All right. What is the shocking? Oh, we've moved on. We're into the new section, which is, of course. Oh, I didn't get rid of that.
Yeah.
Our first WTF, and you were the one who pointed this one out.
Yeah, I was scrolling through Reddit, just being my usual late night boring self during COVID, and I came across this top 8 security podcast for developers, and I realized, we're number 9, so we didn't make the cut, and I was just like, WTF? That's kind of messed up, guys.
Yeah, like what gives? What were the?
But in actuality, they're pretty good podcasts. So I'll put it in the chat if you guys are interested in checking these out. But yeah, open source sovereignty, security weekly news, 2.5 admins, cybersecurity interviews, cyber work, and a couple other ones. The Social Engineer podcast.
OSINT show. Recorded Future is really good. There's one I listen to. Social Engineer podcast. These are, I think there's room for us in here.
Yeah,
of course I do.
I think somebody just didn't want to put our title on the page. That's all.
Oh, we're too cutting edge. Is that it?
Yeah. Really.
I think also a lot of these are pretty old school. I think there's room for something cloud native in there. That's a little bit more in line with that. It's a little bit more modern, let's say. Maybe and we did, as you said, we did come in at unofficially at 9.
Yeah, that's the word on the street.
That's what I've heard. Well, excellent. Congratulations, Michael. That's
for what?
That's quite a big deal. Getting number 9. Number 9. Top 10.
Yeah, top 10. That's for sure. What else we got?
Well, we have the super controversial YOLO framework that this was sent to. Was this sent to us or me by one of my questionable colleagues? And I read it and thought it was simultaneously hilarious and incredibly politically incorrect. And it was just the idea, YOLO sec. So it was the only, and we should probably not put it on the screen because
I'll put a link in the chat.
Put the link in the chat because it's got a lot of profanity. And it's so stupid, it's hilarious. It's basically reckless security as a framework.
Ask me about my NDA. I dare you, right? Break stuff in production because QA is for losers. Like there's a bunch of stuff in there, and it does not. It's worse than this show. I'll say that.
It's worse. Commit code with broken tests. Passing tests is for nerds. It's a whole bunch of just, I don't know, sound advice. But
remove -rf all things, right? Just like random stuff. Sudo, who uses that? Ain't nobody got time for that. Run root as always.
Yeah. That's what root's for. Yeah, it's pretty funny. So, but as we started to read it, we realized, gee, we get enough trouble for this show. Let's not put that on the screen.
Exactly.
All right.
Do we have one more WTF?
Now this is an acquisition. It's an acquisition / WTF. So let's throw the intro for Big Spender because it's a Big Spender moment.
All right,
good intro. Ah, yes. So this is why this is a WTF Big Spender. It's Sonatype, which is a software composition analysis commercial solution, among other things, acquires MuseDev. I'm saying MuseDev. And the reason, which I don't know if it's an undisclosed amount. Let's see if let me know if you saw the total, which is why I didn't say it was Big Spender. It's not there. It's not there. So I speculate. Probably way too much, right? Because that tends to be what's happening at the moment. But what the reason it was WTF is because it was WTF is MooseDev. Like, how long do you have to be in security tooling before never heard of them? It looks like a sort of static analysis, but for performance as well as security, that's interesting. But I never heard of them. Like we did a session last week. We talked about tools for like 40 minutes. I've been looking at the SIG Security's map of tools document they're creating. There's tons there. I've been in the industry. I've been a part of orchestrating huge pipelines and tools, and yet never heard of these guys. So that was my WTF. This is why we have to start a security company, Foster.
Yeah.
I think
there's nothing on cost, but I'm assuming they're not going to be the first buyers in this space for, developer friendly security tools in, supply chain tools, looking at declarative structures and GitOps and things like that. It seems like that's, oh yeah, look at, they got checkoff and things like that in there. Yeah, I can't believe we missed this one.
It looks like guardrails. You know guardrails? I demoed guardrails in one of my presentations because it's just guardrails, and there's one other one I can't remember what it is, but it's just almost like software as a service for all the free stuff. So it's cheap and easy, but it's just weird that you would buy it. So there's a bunch of stuff already built in.
Sonatype's pretty big and well used, so it's well, they say 70% of Fortune 100 companies.
Really?
Count for something. That's what Sonatype.
Wow.
Sonatype is developer friendly. Oh, I'm going to do their marketing pitch right now. Is developer friendly, full spectrum software supply chain management, providing organizations total control of their cloud native development life cycles. Woof. That is a sentence. That is a sentence. It doesn't even stop there, including third-party open source code, first-party source code, infrastructure as code, and containerized code. Wow.
Wow.
Moving on.
That is marketing.
You'll get an update probably in a couple months about how much this was acquired for. Do you want to place an over-under, Steve?
I think it's low.
I think it's 80, 100.
I'm going to say under 50.
Yeah?
Yeah. 30 to 50.
I'll take the... Oh, okay. Over under 75 then. Since I said 100 and you said 50, you're going to go under 75. I'll go over 75.
All right. There we go.
Sorry.
Done.
That's the bet.
That's what I think.
I'm in the mood since March Madness started. So
yeah, we're recklessly gambling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So more in the huge WTF. And I tried to find an article that had both on it, so I didn't have to do it twice. So we have security unicorns. Look at the picture. That's a beautiful thing. That is
that goes with your shirt, doesn't it, Steve?
It does. Hold on. Let's put it back onto this mode. Let me just stand up. That's my free hoodie that I got at DevSecCon.
Does the hoodie come with the sound effects, or is that?
I didn't make any noise there. Just did that when I stood up.
Oh, that's what I got to look forward to in a couple of years, huh?
Yeah, it was my back creaking. So this is Sneak, actually, technically paid for that. So this is actual proper unicorn poo now that they're officially a unicorn.
Mm-hmm.
But there you go.
Crazy.
Well, totally 135 for Aqua, where I used to work, and Sneak 300 million in Series E. It's when it's so that's crazy, right? But not super crazy. Mm-hmm. But when you think of all their total amount of funding is 470, they're giving them a 10x valuation of 4.7 billion.
Yeah, I'm surprised at that valuation, but quadrupling its valuation since 2020. When have their funding rounds been coming in? They must have been like pretty rapid succession over the last year, right?
You're talking about Snick?
Yeah.
Ooh.
That's my guess. Because they haven't been around. How long have they been around for?
I've been spending a lot of time on Crunchbase lately.
Yeah, it's good for finding acquisitions, right?
It's exactly good for finding. And Snick's a pretty unique name, so I should be able to find that pretty quick.
See who's a better Googler. Yeah, no, so they got 200 million.
I'm gonna put this up.
September 9th. Did you find it? Okay, yeah, perfect. 200 million September 9th, yeah. And then 9 months before that, in January last year, they got 150. So yeah, that's pretty wild.
That's totally wild. But they're doing pretty well. I mean, they're a known brand, and I would even credit. Well, I mean, DevSecCon, right? They bought a conference essentially. They had my DevSecOps before that, and then that's kind of combined. And I got this awesome hoodie, so they're doing really well, giving away free.
Investors. Thanks for the hoodie.
Thank you. Yes, exactly. I mean, just check the big pocket. No, there's no money in it. That would have been nice. But yeah, so that's kind of crazy, and we're in a. I feel like it's just we should we even have a big spender section on the show? And yet every show I figure at some point we're gonna go, we should just scrap that. There's no crazy stuff going on anymore, but still going.
Yeah, this one feels like, hey, we just made a bunch of money in 2020. We got to spend it somewhere.
That was it, right? There's all these special purpose acquisition things going on as well, where they're just like SPACs. I didn't even know what that was, and now suddenly, why do I have to know what that is? I wasn't even trying, and that got explained to me recently that people are just overinflating things and using it to spend money on because they just have the money, and it's like, anyway, that's something for a whole other show topic maybe. And I'll talk about that next week, because that's one of the super dodgy WTF things that I found. People creating companies just to be acquired. So that's tune in next week for more of that, which is what we're gonna do. Sounds like an awesome scam.
Yeah, who wants to drive this for us? I will pitch in probably nothing, because
I don't have me neither. It doesn't matter. But we don't. I think we can rig it so we don't have to. But let's leave these big spenders behind. I still don't have a tool time segue. I got to work on that. Where like hammers come in and a saw blade shoots across, and
just have Bob the Builder or something like that. Like, maybe a little Lego pieces,
or maybe a Mario Donkey Kong kind of intro. That'd be all right.
We're taking requests. Anybody have any thoughts on tool time? Let us know.
Yeah, we need an intro. But all right, speaking of tools, Helm's second security audit in. Nice little diagram. If you're not familiar with threat models, look how fun they are. The little guy. That's nice. You get your trust boundaries. You can look at the way everything flows through. I mean, that's not the most comprehensive thing I've ever seen, but it's pretty nice. The good news is that, to summarize, not a lot wrong. Helm looking very solid. It did have a first audit, which I went and found as well.
Oh yeah.
And you can know this one's okay. There was one thing that was sort of bad. And big shout out to Cure 53, German pen testers. The guy who runs Cure 53, his name escapes me, but he's like Dr. something. If you can Google it but he does a lot of talks at like OWASP conferences. So if you can catch
Dr.
him
Mario
talking
Heidrich.
There we go. Yes. So if you could catch a Dr. Mario presentation on YouTube or at a conference, if we're ever allowed to do that again, highly recommend it. He did one that I was at about a year and a bit ago, sarcastically talking about how we've cured cross-site scripting, and he just showed all of these defense mechanisms and then immediately showed how he could get past them. Like, it was alarming, funny, and insightful at the same time. So if you can do that, he's the guy who runs Cure 53, and great choice to get them to pick apart anything. I used to work for a security company, and we hired Cure 53 to attack our security tool, because that's a great thing to do as well, in addition to open source tools like Helm. So that's cool. That's good news if you're using Helm. Why is it good news? Because, and I put these other ones for reference, these are the articles that Helm used to get when it was using Helm 2, when it was using
Tiller.
Tiller poses security threat.
Yeah, Tiller was something else.
That was well. What's you said something to me about this when we first put this into the show at the end, and it was like Tiller runs his route. It was another great.
Yeah, it's like a client server relationship where you're basically pushing the charts. And the reason why they had Tiller originally was Tiller basically installs in a namespace. It's a little process that checks the configurations and then applies them to the API server. It comes with full privilege access to the environment, which also meant if you could get into Tiller without using Helm, you had full privilege to everything too, right? So the reason why it was implemented is because you'd have people that are trying to push Helm charts, and let's say there's an environment that you've set up that are specifically gated so your charts wouldn't work or wouldn't do specific things, or maybe you're installing Prometheus through a Helm chart and you're not allowed to do this in your environment. Helm and Tiller allows you to just bypass all of that, so everything magically works. And I can 100% see why that was the original design, because when you're talking about Helm charts and all of your chart.yaml file and all the different configuration knobs that you can turn when you're installing things, if you don't know what you're doing and you change, let's say, a deployment strategy, things might not work in your environment because your environment's been set up maybe somewhat securely the right way to not allow you to do it. So Tiller just allow you to override that. And I mean, API server would still stop you, but anyways, it's just bad overall, bad design, and it got fixed fairly quickly too. Yeah, it was one of those cases where they got a bunch of crap for about 6 months. They turned it around, released Helm 3, and then as soon as they ported like a lot of the charts over, they changed their chart repository structure too. And honestly, Helm 3 is really, really good now. It's a lot better than where it was. So one of those cases where community feedback really works, right? And honestly, actually following the feedback too, right? It's a good tool.
I have a question. Do you think, because of, certainly from a security perspective, people who are on point with that, right? A lot of people are using Helm even though there were warnings about it, right? But do you think there were people who are a bit more security concerned, just kind of abandoned and just didn't use Helm? And now, like, I think me personally, I kind of blew off Helm a little bit for a while because of that. And now it's solid. And I'm like, I'm still not really, like, I use it, but it's like, there's something about it that maybe I've got this stigma in my head. Yeah, it's probably just me, isn't it? I don't know if anybody, it is me, isn't it? I can tell by the way you're breathing.
So I understand the initial write-off, and I do think with the CNCF and the ecosystem, it's tough to figure out when to put time into tools, right? And Helm is one of those things that, if it also depends on the way you structure your application and how you turn it into charts, because you can have really, really complex charts and you can have really, really simple charts. And it's one of those things that if you don't have the underlying organizational capability of creating applications and passing them through specific checks and automating, then Helm might actually make things more complicated depending on what you're trying to do. But yeah, it's just one of those things that has always been there, and I'd recommend anybody who's written it off to go back and try it. And start with simple ones too, because like what you'll do is you'll go into like the Prometheus open source Helm chart, and you'll see all of the different configurations that are possible in the Helm YAML, like all the different things you can turn, and you'd be like, what the heck is going on, right? But there's the power in that is obviously they can make it run in almost any Kubernetes environment just by switching specific things on or off. So easy to do when you just have a values and you're just inserting it at the highest level, running it, it's quick and easy if you understand what you're doing, right? But
yep, awesome.
Yeah,
cool. That's kind of what I wanted to say. Awesome.
And it honestly powers like a lot of the CNCF tools.
It does.
You think about all the CNCF ecosystem. If you're running a project that's in Kubernetes, they are going to have a Helm chart to deploy it. Right.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. It is the standard, more than just going.
Yeah.
For all you people who are clinging to YAML files.
Yeah. There is like customize and things like that too. There was another one I'll find, which was sort of an in-between. It was like a canon approach. One of the things I did like that they got rid of in Helm is the ability to create namespaces directly from Helm. You have to actually do it manually. Now, a lot of people were annoyed with that because it was like you had to go and create a namespace and then push Helm into the namespace. But I actually agree with that to a certain extent, because if you're allowing Helm to create the namespace, that also means that you're allowing Helm to one-stop delete the namespace too, right? So it actually should be a separate approach towards cleanup of Helm create and then, delete namespace, Helm cleanup kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Side note, I'm rambling, but
no, that's a good.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you almost sometimes want to create things that aren't as easy as they should be, so that people are aware of what they're doing and they're not just doing delete namespace or, remove all. Because, if you're not using something like Helm and you're using, just straight up YAML files and you're just running a script to apply all your YAML files or something like that, well, script works in reverse the same way, right?
Yeah, you can potentially do a lot of damage by just deleting a namespace. Okay, awesome. Yeah, I think I agree with you. It's good. Controversy would have been fun, but
well, what do you want? I can create controversy.
No. Do we have anything else for the show, actually, or is that was the last item on the list? Any last minute things come in?
Yeah, come to DevSecOps London next week.
There it is. That's what we end on. All right, amazing. This is how long do we go? Wow, this was a pretty long one. 45 minutes. It's about become normal, hasn't it?
Yeah, we like hearing the sound of us talk, so it's just it happens.
It does happen. All right. Well, that's the end of our show for this week. Once again, my name is Steve Giguere. There's my Twitter. You can follow me there.
Yeah, same as well. I'm Mike Foster. Have a good weekend.
All right.